Can't wait.
My daughter-in-law's brother passed away. Young man, 25-year-old boy. Real tragedy. So, good morning. Hi, Barry. I don't think so.
This is 3 weeks or 2 weeks ago. Walked out of the gym in Dallas. There's a drive-by shooter.
Oh,
He was randomly with his head. Just the wrong place at the wrong time. He just got discharged. He was in the ICU. It's serious.
Oh my gosh.
Imagine.
Thank God he's alive. Okay, so why don't we get started? We're talking about the halachos of halva'a, of loans, and we haven't talked at all about ribbis. Ribbis has been a side issue which we haven't engaged in because it's really more of a Yoredeya issue than a Choshen Mishpat issue. But the laws of loans are still codified in Choshen Mishpat. He says, "Ucheshiyagia zman hapirao." So this Sif Tes Zayin, deals with when it comes time to pay back. And I, as a lender, have collateral that I've taken from the borrower, and I want to be able to collect on the loan. The loan is due, and and by the way, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be giving a shiur on the Prusbul, on the whole concept of what's coming up at the end of the Shemitah year of the cancellation of debts. Okay, so which is very topical for this halacha, the laws of halva. Something that we'll do Erev Rosh Hashanah, which is coming up in just a few weeks, but it's pertinent to this halacha. So anyway, the loan is due. Lo yimkerenu ad la'achar lamed yom. So what I'm not allowed to do is, the guy has given me a pikadon, he's given me collateral. I'm not allowed to sell the collateral until I wait 30 days past the date of the maturity of the loan. V'chein hanotel mashkon achar shehigia zman hapiraon lo yimkerenu ad la'achar lamed yom miyom netilaso oso. And furthermore, let's say I ask the debtor to pay me back. He says, listen, I don't have the money. I need another few days. Take this as collateral that I'm going to come up with the money. So this extends for the debtor an automatic additional 30 days. Provided that it's not an item that I have to daily return back to the lova, because as we learned before, when the guy is really poor and has no assets, and the only thing that he can give me is the tool that he uses to make his parnasa during the day, or his pajama that he wears at night, I have to give that back to him every single day. So this could be something that he doesn't need on a constant basis, but I still have to wait for 30 days before I sell it. But if it's something that the guy needs for his parnasa, then I'm never allowed to sell it. Because since I've taken it as collateral, the Torah had commanded me, if you remember from the previous halachos, that the Torah says that I have to give it back to him on a daily basis. And I'm not allowed to keep it for myself, even if I wait 30 days. Umata kanaso. So how do we end this never-ending process? Right? What do we do? How do we remedy this situation? Yachzirenu lelova legamre, af be'es she'ein sarach lo. So he says, basically take this tool or this garment, give it back to the lova, even when he doesn't need it. Whatever, if it's a night garment, give it back to him, not only at night, but let him just keep it during the day. And then say to him, listen, do you want us to be done with this? If yes, then don't give it to me as a pikadon, as a security item, but give it to me as complete and final payment. And then we'll be done. You won't have to worry about me. I won't have to worry about you. And then Basin will have to get involved because, as we said, this is a vital garment for his, bless you, for his subsistence. So therefore, what's the solution? It could be that it's a more valuable garment. Basin will sell it, and then they'll buy a less expensive pajama for this guy, and the lova will at least have his debt paid off. The Yesh Omrim Sha'af Hamalva al Hamashkon Hu Davar Hatzarach Lo Hatzarach Lakayim Bo Mitzvahs Hashavas Ha'avot. That and some say that this is not only true if the lova, if the borrower has this item seized on behalf of Basin, but even if the loan was originally made with this collateral item, but it's something that the fellow needs, then I still have to return it back to him on a daily basis. So he says, normally we don't require a creditor to return the item back to the debtor on a daily basis if the debtor willingly surrendered it to him at the time of the loan as security. But in this situation, once the loan is matured and the guy says, that's the only thing that I have to make my parnasa with, then I still cannot sell it. Until you actually basically say, here, take it back. And if you want to be done with me, then give it to me as payment instead of a pikadon, and we'll be clean. In other words, essentially what this halacha is saying is that when something was given to me as security and not as payment of the loan, then I do have a right to sell it, but A, I have to wait 30 days, and B, if it's something that the lova claims is something that he absolutely must have, it's not something that he can part with because he needs it for his essential living. So then, according to one opinion, I would never be allowed to sell it unless I first give it back to him and then say, well, if that's the case, here it is. And are you willing to part with it once and for all? If yes, give it to me as payment. And if not, you're going to have to come up with the cash, or I'm going to have to continue holding on to it. Okay. So that was, and basically, we will forego going through the Imrei Yaakov. I just wanted to back up one sif. Let's go on to the next sif. Ucheshenotel b'toras piro. But once you take something as payment, if it's not cash, but it's an item of value, the guy says, I can't pay you. Here, take my Fabergé egg or my Mickey Mantle baseball card or whatever he gives you. Then you can, as soon as the loan is due, you don't have to wait any period of time. The guy says he can't pay, so use this as payment. I can't pay you cash, so use this as payment. That's fine. You don't have to wait the 30 days. The only time that the rabbi said you have to wait 30 days as a sort of a courtesy to the debtor is only when he had given it to you as security and not as automatic payment. In other words, you could structure the loan in one of two ways. You could structure it as, I'm lending you $1,000. I expect back $1,000 cash, but I need a security item to know that my loan is secure. So if the guy designates his Mickey Mantle baseball card and he gives it to you to hold on to it, So then it's not meant as payment, it's meant as security. And if the loan matures and he can't pay you, you tell him, okay, I'm waiting 30 days, but after 30 days, I have a right halachically to sell the baseball card. If, however, the guy basically said to you, if I don't come up with the cash when the loan is due, then this is immediately considered payment for the loan. So then again, provided that it's not more than the value of the loan, but it's equivalent to the value of the loan, then the baseball card immediately becomes yours and you don't have to wait 30 days. That's actually a good question. I don't know. It wouldn't seem that way. If the card is appraised at the time of the loan to have a value of $1,000, and then let's say by the time the loan matures, he can find someone willing to pay $2,000 for it. Is that considered to be ribis? I'm not sure. It's a very good question. I don't know the answer. Do you look at the value of the item at the time that the loan matures and determine whether it's ribis or not? It's a good question. Let's see if maybe we'll get to that.
Left hand in the bag, ultimately.
But there is one remedy. One remedy is if I give it back to you, because if you gave it to me only as security and the guy is poor, then the remedy is the poor borrower says, I know that I'm poor and I know that you don't have a right to sell it. Give it to me. I'll give it back to you as payment and we're done. You have a right to take it at that point. So, but that would be the only way as long as the borrower is, let's say, is cooperative. If the borrower is not cooperative and he says, listen, I need this for that's not going to apply to a baseball card, right? But it'll apply, let's say, to a piece of machinery that he uses. A plow, right? Okay.
So why wouldn't the borrower liquidate the item and then pay off the loan?
It could be that he's not.
We're saying that he's going to give it to the lender and the lender sells it.
So it could be he's not obligated to liquidate it. It's the lender's obligation to go through that burden of liquidation. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Okay. The only time they force the lender to wait 30 days before liquidating it is when it was given as security, not when it was given originally as alternate payment. He says the Beis Din basically says we'll give you 30 days. We'll give a borrower an extra 30 days to figure out how to come up with the cash before allowing the lender to liquidate the security. And the 30 days is counted from the date that the lender asks for repayment of the debt. And this official sort of request for repayment of the debt does not have to be done in Beis Din. It can even be done privately between just the two parties. Provided that the request for payment is after the loan matures. He says, and if a loan was made without any stipulation of when the loan matures, there's an assumption that a stam loan is 30 days. So basically, if a guy lends a guy $1,000 on June 1st without specifying when the loan is due, come July 1st, automatically the loan is due. The lender then says to the borrower, could you please pay me back the $1,000? The guy says, I don't have it. So the lender has a right to say to him, well, the security that you gave me, the Mickey Mantle card, I'm going to wait 30 days as is awarded to you by Basin before selling it. But if I don't get the money by June 31st, I'm going to be liquidating the baseball card. Take it, okay? So V'hu shetavo achash, right? Right, okay. Ve'enu yachol letovo kodem lamed yom. And you're never allowed to, unless it was stipulated otherwise, you're never allowed to demand payment within those 30 days. If a loan was made and there was no stipulation, you can't ask him for that money back in less than 30 days. V'im hamashkon kala b'holech yachol lamocher af b'toch lamed yom latvia. And the final thing is, and this is, I think, the last thing that we saw, or maybe I think that we saw this, if the collateral is something that is perishable, let's say the guy gives me a bushel of tomatoes. Okay, that's a good example. Gives me a bushel of tomatoes, and the tomatoes are perishable. They're not going to last the 30 days. Then I have a right to sell the tomatoes even before the loan matures. Okay, because yeah, it could be right. Okay, so let's take a look at the Imrei Yaakov on this. We start counting from the date that the malva demands payment. Shetava salova da'af shekvar higiyaz man hapiron v'arva avar mehem shloshim yom lo yuchal l'mochra. He says, because even if the loan matured and it's already 30 days past the maturity of the loan, the malva still does not have a right to sell it unless he officially demands repayment of the loan. In other words, I could imagine a scenario where I've been holding on to your Mickey Mantle card and the loan is mature, and I specifically choose not to ask you for repayment because I really want your Mickey Mantle card. So I try to pretend, oh, but you knew the loan was mature. So how could you come back to me now 3 months later and think that you can just pay me back the $1,000 and I have to surrender the Mickey Mantle card? So the debtor can legitimately say, because you never asked me for repayment. But you knew it was due in a month. I know, but you never asked me. So I took that as liberty to extend it. So that's the point. The point is that there has to be an official demand for repayment. And if the loan is mature, there's a demand for repayment. At that moment that the demand takes place, that's when the 30-day timer starts if the guy can't pay me. The halamed yom nima rak achar shegiya hazman uvenosef lazeh gam tov lehedja. You need both conditions. The loan has to mature, plus there has to be a demand for repayment. Yeah.
It wasn't worth talking about. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
The other day, Apple, I think it went for a record amount for
Seriously, you heard about a Mickey Mantle baseball card?
just the other day. It went half Google and went with that. Went for it.
12.6 million. So that's a hefty
That's quite
loan.
the loan.
Official loan was 5 million, they sold it for 12.
I actually had one when I was a kid. Little did I know.
I guess with the loan's $1,000, he puts up that.
It's a 1952 baseball card.
That's probably his rookie card.
Yeah. But remember, it also was SGC 9.5, which, if you know grading condition, yeah, that's basically like a mint. It's really
It's probably in the package or whatever.
well, they put it in a case. It's as close to a mint as you can get. I mean, they do have a 9.8, but I know this from comic book collecting. Okay, but anyway. Okay. All right. So stam halva hi lamed yom. that a standard loan is a 30-day period. In other words, when there's no date, it's an open-ended loan, it's assumed to be a 30-day loan. You can't play games with that. And by the same token, the creditor cannot demand repayment in less than 30 days. And this is true whether there was paper or not drafted at the time of the loan, whether it was an oral loan or whether it was written with a promissory note. If there's no date, it's assumed to be 30 days. Bein b'mashkon, bein shelo b'mashkon, and that's also true whether there was collateral posted or not. B'davka b'halva amrinon kain, aval b'she'ela stam zman la'alter. But he says, but that's only when it comes to loans. With loans, we say that a stam loan is assumed to be a 30-day loan, and the lender cannot demand repayment in any time less than 30 days. But what if I lend you something? What if I lend you my lawnmower? So, I believe we saw this as well. The loans of items are different from loans of cash. Loans of cash are assumed to be 30 days. Loans of chattel, loans of items that I own, I lend you my goat for its milk, or I lend you my lawnmower to mow the lawn, so then I can demand a return of that item immediately. There's no specific sort of blackout time when I can't ask it back from you. So what's the reason for this distinction in the different kinds of, the difference between a halva and a she'ela? He says the halva kevin de lahotza anitna mistama hilvelo lahotzia b'tzarach zman liishtadel lahasig moshi chalifrola. This is because when you loan cash, the assumption is the guy's not holding on to the cash and giving you back the same cash. He's going to be spending that money. And when you spend money, it takes time to reaccumulate the replacement for that cash. So we have to give a person at least 30 days, unless it was specified otherwise. But when it comes to a lawnmower, it's right there. It's not an onerous request for me to say to you, I've let you have it for 2 days. You didn't get to mowing your lawn. That's too bad on you. But there's no burden on you to have to figure out where you're going to find the lawnmower. It's right there in the garage. So therefore, you have to give it back to me. Yes. Well, that's the thing is that, right. It's not the same sugar. Right. Yeah, I believe you're right. I believe you're right. Because that's called a halva. That's called a loan, a cup of sugar. Right. I'm not expecting the same cup back. V'hinei hamagin Avram Kosav, denohagin b'medino senu detopim stam halva toch lamed yomayin sham. He says the Magen Avram wrote that it all depends on the convention of when and where you live. He said in his time, which was in the 16th, 17th century, he said it had become standard practice that loans were less than 30 days. And so the question is, what does that say about our times? Can a person say that I expect it back in 2 weeks, even though in the times of the Gemara it was stam 30 days? So basically, based on this Magen Avram, that it depends on convention. Let's say a store extends credit. A store has, first of all, the local makolet, usually in Israel, people live on credit. That's the way that a lot of people just get by from month to month, is that they'll buy groceries with an anticipation of getting some kind of paycheck at the end of the month. So the makolet, the supermarket, will quite often extend credit and just mark it down. This is what you owe. So even today in Israel, the local makolets will many times do that. which is why,
Once a month.
yeah.
I was gonna ask how often people get paid, is it usually?
So,
every 2 weeks?
right, so he says, so basically, Reb Stern writes, it all depends on the minhag hamakom of, of when the expectation is for the how long the credit is extended for. A lot of times, it may only be that you need it because I don't get paid until Sunday, but I need groceries for Erev Shabbos, so I'll come to you on Thursday, and with the understanding that all credit that's extended is due by the Sunday of the next week. Okay, right? He says it all depends. Some stores will extend credit for 3 months. Some stores will extend credit for less than 3 months. He says he says there's also a difference between the sellers and the sochen. I'm not sure, what is the word sochen? Is it the wholesaler? Let me just make sure that I'm translating this word correctly. The agent. A sochen is an agent. It could be the salesman. It could be the salesman who's extending credit, and versus the person who owns the commodity, and also the buyers. Everything depends upon the convention.
Sometimes salesmen buy from the company. It's obviously not a salesman, what we're thinking of, that you're selling it for 75% more exclusively to the guy who's a salesman who buys from it.
So in a way, he's an owner, sort of.
It's all different types of scenarios.
Okay, so it basically all depends on the convention, is essentially what the bottom line is. In other words, when we say that a stam halva is 30 days, that's when all other things are equal. If there's already a convention established in a community, in a social structure that allows for loans to extend longer than 30 days, so then you do have to wait longer than 30 days. It's always a good idea, therefore, to lay things out with the person that you lend money to and specify the amount of time that the guy has to pay the loan back.
The rest of these stores in Israel, then, what do they have for security?
A lot of times they don't.
It's such a huge issue, such a sign here, assuming
Yeah, I mean, it's when you're dealing with the neighborhood makolet on the corner street, everyone has to write down their address. You know where the guy lives. I don't know. I think it is an honor system. Yeah. Well, we're dealing with honorable Jews, hopefully. Right. It is a
The minimum makom,
Yeah.
period. Write it down. If you don't write it down, you're in trouble. That's.
You're right.
When it comes down.
You're
to
right.
Going through so many.
You're right. That's what it seems to be. But you have to remember, when you're dealing in real life situations, a lot of times people neglect to do that. Sometimes these things are done ba'al peh, and it's only after the fact. Sure. That's what we started this whole sefer with, was your word is your bond. Okay, we're going to hold it here for today, and Mirza Hashem will pick it up tomorrow. All right, good to have everyone back, or at least some of you.